Daniel Carter stared at the text glowing on his phone while snow drifted silently past his apartment window. I want to keep seeing you. 3 hours earlier, he had stepped into a candlelit restaurant to meet a stranger Ryan insisted was perfect for him. Instead, he found himself face to face with Olivia Brooks, his best friend's ex-wife. Outside, Boston was buried in snow. Inside, something long frozen in Daniel's heart had begun to thaw. But as his 7-year-old daughter slept down the hall, one question pressed heavier than the winter storm. Was he about to risk friendship for love? The morning began the way every January morning had begun for the past 3 years, with Daniel Carter standing at the kitchen counter, watching snow accumulate on the window ledge, while coffee brewed in the machine his ex-wife had left behind. "Daddy, can I wear my purple sweater?" Lily's voice carried from her bedroom, small and bright against the muffled quiet of winter. "The one with the snowflakes?" Daniel called back, pouring coffee into a chipped mug that read "World's Best Architect," a gift from colleagues who didn't know he spent more time managing construction schedules than designing buildings anymore. He smiled despite the familiar weight in his chest. 7 years old, and Lily still approached each day like it held magic. Daniel couldn't remember the last time he'd felt that way. The apartment was small but carefully maintained. Architectural sketches lined one-wall projects from before his life had narrowed to single parenthood. A child's drawing of a purple house hung beside them, secured with tape that left residue on the white paint. He'd meant to frame it properly. He'd meant to do a lot of things. Through the window, Boston's Back Bay neighborhood lay blanketed in white. Cars moved slowly down Commonwealth Avenue, their headlights cutting through the pre-dawn darkness. Daniel had lived in this city for 12 years, but the winters still caught him off guard. Not their severity, but their length. The way February felt like a promise that spring would never actually come. Lily emerged wearing the purple sweater over thermal leggings, her dark hair pulled into a ponytail that listed slightly to the left. Daniel knelt to fix it, his hands gentle as he smoothed the flyaways. "Perfect," he said. "You always say that, because it's always true." She grinned, gap-toothed and trusting, and something in Daniel's chest cracked the way ice cracks under pressure. 3 years since her mother had walked out, citing reasons that boiled down to one truth. Motherhood hadn't been what she wanted. Lily had been 4, old enough to notice the absence, but young enough that Daniel could still distract her with stories and hot chocolate and the deliberate construction of routine. They ate breakfast together, oatmeal with maple syrup and sliced bananas. Lily talked about the snow fort her class was building during recess. Daniel listened, made the appropriate sounds of interest, and tried not to think about how many conversations he'd had in the past 3 years that consisted entirely of listening. "Mrs. Henderson says we might get another 6 inches tonight," Lily said, swinging her legs under the table. "Do you think they'll cancel school?" "Probably not. Boston doesn't cancel for anything less than a blizzard." "What's a blizzard?" "When the snow falls so hard you can't see your hand in front of your face." Lily held up her hand experimentally, squinting at it. "That sounds scary." "It can be. But you'd be safe inside with me." She nodded, satisfied, and returned to her oatmeal. Daniel watched her, feeling the familiar mixture of love and inadequacy that defined his days. He was good at the practical parts of parenting: meals, schedules, homework, help. But the emotional architecture, the blueprint for raising a whole human being who'd lost half her foundation before she could understand what that meant, that still felt beyond his expertise. His phone buzzed. A text from Ryan Mitchell, his best friend since college. "Still on for tonight?" Daniel's stomach tightened. He'd been trying not to think about tonight. "Do I have a choice?" "Nope." 7 p.m. "Giacomo's. She's amazing. Trust me." Daniel set the phone down harder than necessary. Lily looked up. "You okay, Daddy?" "Fine, sweetheart. Just work stuff." It wasn't exactly a lie. Ryan worked in the same architecture firm, 2 floors up in the project management division. They'd been friends for 15 years, had been groomsmen at each other's weddings, had stood by each other through divorce, Ryan's 2 years ago, Daniel's 3. Ryan had taken his split philosophically, treating it like a failed project that had simply run its course. Daniel's had felt more like a building collapse. The rest of the morning followed its established pattern. Daniel packed Lily's lunch, checked her backpack, helped her into her winter coat and boots. They walked 3 blocks to Garfield Elementary, through snow that fell in soft, persistent flakes. Other parents nodded in passing neighbors. Daniel recognized but didn't really know. He'd been invited to school events, neighborhood gatherings, book clubs. He always declined politely, citing work or childcare or the truth that made people uncomfortable. He wasn't ready. "Have a good day, Ladybug," he said at the school entrance, using the nickname that had somehow stuck since she was 2. "You too, Daddy." Lily hugged him, her small arms fierce around his waist, then ran inside where warmth and noise and the busy chaos of childhood waited. Daniel stood on the sidewalk longer than necessary, watching through the windows as Lily joined her classmates. Then he turned and walked to the T-station, joining the flow of commuters who moved through winter like salmon swimming upstream, determined, exhausted, simply trying to reach the next destination. The office was on Boylston Street, a glass and steel structure that Daniel had helped design 7 years ago, back when he still took creative projects. Now he managed construction timelines for commercial developments. Work that paid well but felt like translating poetry into spreadsheet formulas. His desk faced a window overlooking Copley Square. Snow covered the plaza, turning the city into something clean and distant. Daniel opened his laptop, pulled up project files, and tried to focus on the high-rise going up in the Seaport District. The foundation was 3 weeks behind schedule. The electrical subcontractor was threatening to walk. Standard problems that required standard solutions. His mind kept drifting to tonight. Ryan had been pressuring him for months. "You can't be alone forever, man. Lily needs to see you living, not just surviving. I am living. You're maintaining. There's a difference." Maybe there was. Daniel had stopped being able to tell. At lunch, Ryan appeared in his doorway holding 2 sandwiches from the deli downstairs. "Turkey or roast beef? I'm not hungry." Liar. Ryan tossed the turkey sandwich onto Daniel's desk and settled into the visitor's chair. He was taller than Daniel, with prematurely gray hair that made him look distinguished rather than old. Women at the firm found him charming. Daniel found him relentless. "You're really doing this," Daniel said. "I'm really doing this. And you won't tell me anything about her?" "Her name is Ryan," paused dramatically. "Going to remain a mystery until 7 o'clock. She's smart, she's kind, she has a real job, and she laughed at my jokes, which means she has either a great sense of humor or tremendous patience. This is a terrible idea. Your track record with ideas lately has been making the same dinner rotation for 3 years and watching exactly 1 TV show before falling asleep at 9:30. I think my terrible idea might be an upgrade." Daniel unwrapped the sandwich without enthusiasm. "What if it's awkward? Then you'll have a story to tell. What if it's not?" That possibility felt more dangerous than awkwardness. Daniel had built his life around known quantities, measured risks, controlled variables. A blind date introduced chaos into a system that functioned precisely because it contained none. "I don't even know what to talk about," he admitted. "You talk to clients all day. That's different. There are blueprints involved." Ryan laughed. "Just be yourself. You're a good guy, Daniel. Better than you think." After Ryan left, Daniel tried to return to work, but couldn't concentrate. His thoughts kept circling the same question. What was he hoping for? Not love that seemed too ambitious, too fragile. Maybe just proof that he was still capable of sitting across from another adult and having a conversation that didn't involve construction delays or parent-teacher conferences. The afternoon crept past. Daniel left at 5, riding the T back through falling snow to pick up Lily from after-school care. She bounced out carrying a painting of a purple house surrounded by white trees. For our wall, she announced. It's beautiful. At home, Daniel made dinner spaghetti with marinara sauce, garlic bread, salad that Lily picked at without eating. He'd arranged for Mrs. Chen from apartment 3B to watch Lily tonight. She was a retired teacher who baked cookies and spoke Mandarin to Lily, who absorbed languages like Snow absorbed sound. "Where are you going?" Lily asked as Daniel cleared the dishes. He'd been dreading this question. "Out to dinner. With a friend." "What friend?" "Someone Uncle Ryan knows." Lily's eyes widened. "Is she going to be my new mom?" The question hit Daniel like a fist to the sternum. "No, sweetheart. It's just dinner. But Uncle Ryan said you need to meet someone." "Uncle Ryan says a lot of things. He said you're lonely." Daniel knelt so they were eye level. Lily's face was so serious, so much older than 7. "I'm not lonely when I'm with you, but I can't be with you all the time." The truth of it ached. "No, you can't. So maybe she could be nice. The friend." Daniel pulled Lily into a hug, breathing in the scent of her strawberry shampoo. At 6:30, Mrs. Chen arrived with a container of homemade dumplings. Daniel changed into dark jeans and a sweater that didn't have paint stains, checked his reflection in the bathroom mirror, and tried to remember the last time he'd cared what he looked like. The man staring back seemed unfamiliar. Not old, exactly, but worn in ways that had nothing to do with age. "You look nice," Lily said when he emerged. "Thank you, Ladybug. Have fun." "I'll try." Outside, snow fell harder. Daniel walked to his car, a sensible Honda that had been sensible even when he bought it 8 years ago, and drove toward the north end through streets that had gone quiet under their white burden. Traffic moved slowly. Daniel matched its pace, in no hurry to arrive. The pressure had started subtly, the way snow starts before you realize it's going to bury everything. It began 3 months ago at the firm's holiday party. Daniel had attended out of obligation, nursing a beer in the corner while colleagues discussed vacation plans and home renovations. Ryan found him there. "You know what your problem is? I wasn't aware I had a problem. You've turned into a ghost. You're here, but you're not actually present." That's very philosophical for someone 3 drinks in. Ryan ignored the deflection. "When's the last time you went on a date? Why does everyone suddenly care about my dating life?" "Because you don't have one. And Lily's getting old enough to notice." That part was true. Just last week, she'd asked why her friend Emma's dad had a girlfriend, but Daniel didn't. He'd stammered something about being busy with work, and Lily had nodded but looked unconvinced. The next day, Ryan had cornered him in the office kitchen. "I met someone perfect for you. Please don't. She's a graphic designer. Divorced, no kids, loves architecture. You two would have so much to talk about." Ryan. One dinner. What's the worst that could happen? Daniel could think of several worst-case scenarios, all involving prolonged awkwardness and the confirmation that he'd forgotten how to be interesting to another adult. But Ryan had the determined look he got on difficult projects, the one that meant he wouldn't let go until the job was done. Over the following weeks, the pressure intensified. Ryan texted restaurant suggestions. He forwarded articles about the importance of modeling healthy relationships for children. He cornered Daniel in the office, at the gym, once in the parking garage while Daniel was loading groceries. "You're like a dog with a bone," Daniel finally said, "and you're like a turtle who's forgotten his shell has a door." That metaphor doesn't make sense. Neither does hiding from life because one person hurt you. The words stung because they contained truth. Daniel wasn't hiding from life exactly, he was managing it, controlling it, ensuring it couldn't surprise him the way his ex-wife's departure had surprised him. But maybe management wasn't the same as living. 2 weeks ago, he'd finally agreed. One dinner. That's it. Ryan had grinned like he'd won a major contract. "That's all I'm asking." Now, sitting in his car outside Giacomo's with snow accumulating on the windshield, Daniel wondered if he could still back out. He pulled out his phone, Ryan's last text still glowing on the screen. She's already there. Brown coat, table by the window. You've got this. Daniel stared at the message. The restaurant glowed warm through the snow, its windows fogged with heat and life. Inside, a stranger was waiting, someone who'd agreed to meet him based on Ryan's description, whatever that had been. Daniel tried to imagine what Ryan might have said. He's an architect. Good dad. Emotionally unavailable, but working on it. His phone buzzed again. If you're sitting in your car debating whether to run, the answer is no. Get in there. Daniel typed back. How do you know I'm in my car? Because I know you. Now go. There was affection in Ryan's persistence, Daniel knew. They'd met freshman year at MIT, two kids from different backgrounds who'd bonded over late-night problem sets and a shared belief that buildings could change how people lived. Ryan had been there when Daniel met Claire at a gallery opening, had been best man at their wedding, had helped Daniel pack when Claire left. He'd earned the right to be relentless. Daniel pocketed his phone and stepped out into the snow. The cold hit immediately, sharp and clarifying. He locked the car and walked toward the restaurant, each step feeling heavier than the last. Through the window, he could see couples at tables, the warm glow of candlelight, the easy intimacy of people who knew how to be together. His hand was on the door when his phone buzzed one more time. She's already there. Daniel pulled open the door. Warmth and the smell of garlic and wine washed over him. A hostess smiled. Reservation for Carter? Right this way. She led him through the narrow restaurant, past tables where conversations hummed like distant music. Daniel's heart hammered. This was ridiculous. He was 41 years old, not some teenager on a first date, except it had been so long since he'd done this that the mechanics felt foreign. Here you are, the hostess said, gesturing to a table by the window. Daniel looked up, and his entire world tilted sideways. Giacomo's was the kind of restaurant that looked like it had been tucked into Boston's North End specifically to appear in romantic montages, exposed brick walls, wine bottles, creating cathedral shadows on wooden shelves, and tables set so close together that conversations blurred into a single warm murmur of intimacy. Daniel had passed it 100 times but never been inside. Claire had preferred modern spaces with minimalist decor. This place was the opposite, cluttered with history, unapologetically old world, the kind of establishment where grandmothers brought their grandchildren and explained what real Italian food tasted like. The windows were fogged with condensation, frost creeping along the edges where cold met warmth. Outside, Hanover Street had transformed into something from a snow globe. White-dusted awnings, yellow streetlights haloed in falling snow, the occasional car crawling past like a slow-moving ship. Inside, candles flickered on every table. The lighting was deliberately low, creating pockets of privacy in a space that held maybe 20 tables total. A couple near the back was sharing tiramisu, their heads bent close. An older man sat alone with a book and a glass of red wine, completely absorbed. At a corner table, a group of friends laughed over plates of pasta, their joy unself-conscious. Daniel had arrived 10 minutes early, despite his hesitation in the car. The hostess, a young woman with dark hair pulled into a bun, greeted him with practiced warmth. "Welcome to Giacomo's. Do you have a reservation? Carter." 7 o'clock. She checked her list. "You're the first to arrive. Would you like to wait at the bar, or shall I seat you?" Daniel glanced toward the bar, where two men were engaged in an animated discussion about the Celtics. The idea of waiting there, making small talk with strangers, felt exhausting. "I'll sit, thank you." The hostess led him to a table by the window, the exact table Ryan had described. Of course, Ryan would choose this spot. Maximum visibility, maximum pressure to stay once seated. Daniel had underestimated his friend's tactical planning. "Your server will be right with you," the hostess said, handing him a leather-bound menu that looked like it had survived decades. Daniel sat with his back to the wall, a habit from childhood he'd never shaken. The table was small, intimate, set for two. A single candle burned in a repurposed wine bottle, wax dripping down its sides in layers that suggested years of similar dinners. The window beside him framed the snow falling through streetlight, hypnotic and endless. He checked his phone. 6:52 p.m. 8 minutes until he'd know who he was meeting. 8 minutes to prepare for polite conversation with someone who was probably dreading this as much as he was. His phone buzzed. She's already there. Daniel's head snapped up. He scanned the restaurant, suddenly paranoid. Already there? Had she been watching him arrive? Was this some kind of test? He looked around more carefully. The couple sharing tiramisu, the man with his book, the group of friends. No one was looking at him. No one seemed to be waiting. He typed back, "Where? I don't see anyone." Brown coat, table by the window. Daniel was at the table by the window. His confusion deepened. Was this Ryan's idea of a joke? Some elaborate. The door opened, bringing a gust of snow and cold air. A woman stepped inside. She wore a brown wool coat, snowflakes melting in her dark hair. She was stamping snow from her boots, unwinding a burgundy scarf from her neck, when the hostess approached her. Daniel couldn't hear their conversation over the restaurant's ambient noise, but he saw the woman nod. Saw the hostess glance toward his table. His stomach dropped. The woman turned, following the hostess's gesture. Their eyes met, and Daniel stopped breathing. For a moment that stretched like glass, pulled too thin, neither of them moved. Olivia Brooks stood near the entrance of Giacomo's, her hand frozen on her scarf, her expression cycling through surprise to recognition to something that might have been panic. Snow melted in her hair, creating small dark spots on the shoulders of her brown coat. Daniel gripped the edge of the table, his mind refusing to process what his eyes were reporting. Olivia, Ryan's ex-wife. The woman he'd known for 7 years, had sat across from at countless dinners, had made polite conversation with at holidays and birthdays, and the uncomfortable post-divorce gatherings where everyone pretended everything was fine. The hostess was saying something, gesturing toward Daniel's table, but Olivia wasn't moving. She was staring at him with the same frozen shock he felt freezing his own muscles. This had to be a mistake. Some cosmic filing error. Ryan couldn't have, wouldn't have, but even as denial flooded his thoughts, pieces started clicking together. Ryan's mysterious secrecy. His insistence that Daniel trust him. The deliberate withholding of any identifying details. Ryan had set this up, intentionally. The hostess looked confused now, glancing between them. Olivia seemed to shake herself, to make some kind of decision. She walked toward the table, her movements careful, like someone approaching a potentially dangerous animal. "Daniel," she said softly. "Olivia." His voice came out strangled. "I didn't," Ryan said. "I know." She stood beside the table, still wearing her coat, making no move to sit. "I should go." "Yes." "I mean, no, I don't." Daniel forced himself to take a breath. "What just happened?" "I think we both got set up." Around them, the restaurant continued its cheerful hum. No one else seemed aware that Daniel's entire reality had just tilted 45 degrees off its axis. He stared at Olivia, trying to reconcile the woman standing before him with the situation Ryan had described. A stranger. Someone perfect for him. Someone who, wait, did you know? The question came out sharper than he intended. "Did you know it was me?" Olivia's face flushed. Because Ryan told me I was meeting a stranger, a graphic designer who loves architecture." He was standing now, though he didn't remember deciding to stand. He didn't mention anything about, "I should definitely go." Olivia was already backing away. "I'm sorry, Daniel, I didn't mean to." "Olivia, wait." She stopped, but only because another couple was trying to navigate past her to their table. They were forced to stand there, caught in the awkward space between fleeing and staying, while strangers squeezed by with murmured apologies. When the path cleared, Olivia looked at him. Really looked at him. Her eyes were the same warm brown he remembered, but there was something different in them now, something that made his anger falter. "Did you know?" he asked again, quieter this time. "Not at first." She pulled her coat tighter, a defensive gesture. "Ryan told me he had a friend who needed to get back out there. Someone solid. Someone who'd been through a divorce and understood what that meant. That could describe half of Boston. He said you were an architect. That you had a daughter." Daniel's chest tightened. "And you didn't put it together?" "Not until yesterday." Olivia glanced toward the door, then back at him. "He showed me a photo, said it was from a work event, just to make sure I'd recognize you when I arrived. And you still came." "I almost didn't." She looked down at her hands. "I sat in my car for 20 minutes, trying to decide." The honesty in her voice undercut his anger. He sank back into his chair, suddenly exhausted. "This is insane." Ryan Daniel couldn't even finish the sentence. His best friend had orchestrated this, had deliberately, meticulously created a situation where Daniel would walk into a restaurant expecting a stranger, and instead find, what? His ex-wife? No. Olivia had been married to Ryan, not him. They'd been friends, friendly. The kind of friendly that happened when your best friend married someone and you made an effort because you loved him, and she seemed nice and it was easier than creating conflict. The divorce 2 years ago had been sad but amicable, at least from what Ryan had shared. Something about wanting different things. Olivia had moved across the river to Cambridge. They'd stayed cordial. Daniel had seen her exactly twice since the split, once at a mutual friend's wedding, once when she'd stopped by the office to return something of Ryan's, and they'd exchanged 30 seconds of small talk in the lobby. And now she was standing in a restaurant where his best friend had apparently decided they should have dinner. "We're both here," Olivia said quietly. She'd stopped backing toward the door. "It seems stupid to leave without at least understanding what Ryan was thinking." "I'm not sure I want to understand what Ryan was thinking. Neither am I. But I'm also not sure I want to drive home through a snowstorm having accomplished nothing except confirming that this entire situation is mortifying." Despite everything, Daniel felt a laugh escape. Mortifying. That's one word for it. Do you have a better one? Deranged? Catastrophically misguided? Evidence that Ryan has lost his mind? Olivia smiled, actually smiled. It transformed her face, softening the tension that had held it rigid. Those all work too. They stood there in the middle of Giacomo's, snow falling outside the window, other diners shooting them curious glances. The hostess hovered nearby, clearly uncertain whether to intervene. "We could sit," Daniel heard himself say, "just to figure out what we're going to say to Ryan before we kill him." Olivia hesitated, then slowly unbuttoned her coat. "Just to plan his demise?" "Exactly." She slid into the chair across from him, draping her coat over the back. Underneath, she wore a dark green sweater that brought out the amber flecks in her brown eyes. Daniel had never noticed those flecks before. The server appeared instantly, as if he'd been waiting for this exact moment. "Good evening. Can I start you with something to drink?" Daniel looked at Olivia. Olivia looked at Daniel. "Wine?" she suggested. "God, yes." The wine arrived in glasses that caught the candlelight and turned it liquid gold. Pinot Grigio for Olivia, Chianti for Daniel. They'd ordered without discussing it, both defaulting to safe choices, both clearly trying to establish some kind of normalcy in a situation that had abandoned normal the moment recognition hit. Daniel took a long sip, feeling the wine's warmth spread through his chest. Across the table, Olivia did the same. They set their glasses down simultaneously, caught each other's eye, and both looked away. "This is strange," Olivia said finally, profoundly. "I've known you for 7 years. 8, technically. You and Ryan met at that gallery opening in 2018. Right. 8 years." She traced the rim of her wine glass. "And we've probably had, what, a dozen conversations? Generous estimate. All of them while standing in kitchens at parties, or near coat checks at weddings. Once, at a hardware store. Daniel blinked. I don't remember that. You were buying cabinet hinges. I was getting paint samples. You looked very focused. That sounds accurate. He smiled despite himself. I'm always very focused at hardware stores. I noticed. The server returned to take their order. Neither of them had looked at the menu. They both ordered the same thing, pappardelle with wild boar ragu, then laughed at the coincidence. Ryan always ordered that, Olivia said after the server left. I know. He made me try it the one time I came here with him. I've been thinking about it ever since. Me too. Silence settled between them, but it felt different now. Less awkward. More like two people trying to figure out the rules of a game neither had agreed to play. Can I ask you something? Olivia said. Given the circumstances, I think we're past requiring permission. Did Ryan tell you anything about who you were meeting? Besides the graphic designer thing, Daniel considered lying, then decided against it. He said you were smart, kind, that you laughed at his jokes. That's all true. He also said you were perfect for me, which in retrospect seems like a significant oversimplification. Olivia's mouth quirked. He told me you were solid, grounded, that you'd been through hell and come out the other side still capable of being a good father. The compliment landed unexpectedly, making Daniel's throat tight. He said that? Not in those exact words. But that was the gist. She paused. He also said you'd forgotten how to be happy. Daniel looked down at his wine. Ryan talks too much. He always has. It's one of the things I loved about him. The past tense hung in the air. He believes in fixing things. People, situations, broken cabinet doors. He sees a problem and wants to solve it. And I'm a problem? I think he sees two people he cares about who are stuck, and he thought maybe we could unstick each other. That's insane, probably, but also kind of sweet. Daniel met her eyes. You're defending him. I'm trying to understand him. There's a difference. Their food arrived. Steaming plates of pasta in rich, dark sauce. They ate in silence for a few minutes, and Daniel was surprised to find his appetite had returned. The food was as good as he remembered, complex, satisfying, the kind of meal that required attention. This is really good, Olivia said. Ryan has excellent taste in restaurants, if questionable judgment about everything else. They smiled at each other, and something shifted. The strangeness didn't disappear, but it became less oppressive. They were just two people eating dinner, people who happened to have a shared history and a mutual friend who'd lost his mind, but still, just dinner. Can I ask you something? Daniel said. Only fair. Why did you and Ryan split up? He raised a hand quickly. You don't have to answer. He never really explained it, and I didn't want to pry. Olivia set down her fork, considering. We wanted different things. That's the simple version. What's the complicated version? Ryan wanted adventure. Not in a midlife crisis way, but genuinely. He wanted to take jobs in different cities, try new things, keep moving. I wanted roots, stability, a home that felt like more than a temporary stopping point. She took a sip of wine. Neither of us was wrong. We just weren't compatible. That must have been hard to realize. It was. We loved each other. Past tense now, but at the time, present tense. We just couldn't give each other what we needed without giving up what we needed ourselves. Daniel understood that more than he wanted to admit. His marriage to Claire had fractured along different lines, but the core issue was the same two people moving in divergent directions, neither willing or able to change course. What about you? Olivia asked. Ryan never talks about what happened with your ex-wife. He just says it was complicated. Ryan's being diplomatic. Daniel pushed pasta around his plate. Claire left because she didn't want to be a mother. Turns out that's something you should figure out before having a child. but we both convinced ourselves she'd feel differently once Lily arrived. She didn't. God, Daniel. I'm sorry. It was 3 years ago. We've adjusted. Has Lily adjusted? The question was gentle but direct. Daniel appreciated her not dancing around it. She asks about her mom sometimes, less than she used to. I don't know if that's healthy or concerning. It's probably both. Kids are resilient and fragile at the same time. Do you want children? The question came out before Daniel could stop it. Sorry, that's too personal. No, it's okay. Olivia refilled her wine glass from the bottle the server had left. I do. Or I did. I'm 38, so the window's getting narrower. But yes, theoretically, if the right situation presented itself. Is that why you agreed to this dinner? To get back out there, like Ryan said? She smiled. You mean before I knew it was you? Partly. Also because Ryan sounded so earnest. He really believes in this, in connection, in people finding each other. I couldn't tell if it was sweet or delusional. Probably both, Daniel said, echoing her earlier words. They finished their pasta. The server cleared their plates and suggested dessert. Daniel started to decline, but Olivia said, Could we share the tiramisu? The server nodded approvingly and disappeared. I can't believe you ordered dessert, Daniel said. Why not? Because I don't even know what this is. It's dinner. Dinner sometimes includes dessert. Dinner with your ex-husband's best friend who thought he was meeting a stranger? Okay. When you put it that way, it sounds worse. She leaned back in her chair, studying him. Are you uncomfortable? Daniel considered the question honestly. I was. In the parking lot, I was terrified. When I first saw you, I was shocked. But now? He paused. Now I'm just confused. Confused? How? I'm having a nice time. That doesn't make sense. Why not? Because this whole situation is absurd. Absurd things can still be nice. The tiramisu arrived a generous square of layered cream and espresso-soaked cake, dusted with cocoa powder. It came with 2 spoons. Daniel took one, Olivia took the other, and they carved into opposite sides of the dessert like diplomats establishing borders. Oh my God, Olivia said after the first bite. This is incredible. I know. How have I lived in Boston for 10 years and never had this? Because you were married to someone who always ordered the pasta? She laughed, and the sound was bright and unguarded. Daniel found himself smiling back, genuinely smiling in a way he hadn't in months. Maybe longer. Outside, the snow had intensified. The street was nearly empty now, just the occasional car creeping past, headlights diffused into halos. Inside Giacomo's, the warmth felt insulated, separate from the world beyond the fogged windows. They ate the tiramisu slowly, no longer talking, just existing in the same space with surprising ease. When they finished, Olivia set down her spoon and looked at him directly. I need to tell you something. Daniel's stomach tightened. Okay, I knew it was you. Earlier, when you asked if I knew, I said not until yesterday, which was true. But I had time to process it. Time to decide whether to come. And I came anyway. She held his gaze. Because I've always wondered. Wondered what? What it would be like to actually talk to you. Not kitchen, small talk, or hardware store pleasantries. Really talk. She folded her napkin into small, precise squares. You were always kind when we crossed paths. Thoughtful. You asked good questions and actually listened to the answers. And there was something about the way you talked about Lily, this obvious, uncomplicated love. I found it. She searched for the word. Compelling. Daniel couldn't breathe properly. Olivia, I'm not saying this to make things weird. Weirder. I just thought you should know that coming here wasn't an accident for me. Not after yesterday. The restaurant felt smaller suddenly, the candlelight closer. Daniel could see snowflakes melting in Olivia's hair. Could see the vulnerability in the set of her shoulders. I should be honest too, he heard himself say. When Ryan first told me about this dinner, I was terrified. Not because I didn't want to meet someone, but because I did. That terrified me more than staying alone. And when I walked in and saw you, he stopped, trying to find words that wouldn't come. I thought the universe was playing some kind of cosmic joke. And now? Now I'm not sure what I think, except that I'm glad you stayed. Me too. The server materialized with the check. Daniel reached for it automatically, but Olivia was faster. We're splitting this, she said firmly. That's not. Daniel. We're splitting it. They divided the bill exactly in half, counting out cash in a transaction that felt more intimate than it should have. When they stood to leave, pulling on coats and winding scarves, the physical closeness of the small space made Daniel hyper-aware of her presence. The scent of her perfume, something subtle and cedar-based, the way she tucked her hair behind her ear. They walked to the door together, stepping out into a world transformed. The snow had turned Hanover Street into something from a different century. Silent, white, the modern city buried beneath winter. Their footprints would be the first marks in the fresh snow. "Where's your car?" Daniel asked. "End of the block." "You?" "Same direction." They walked side by side, not touching, their breath creating small clouds in the cold air. The only sound was snow falling, and their footsteps, muffled and distant. Olivia's car came first, a Subaru Outback covered in snow. She pulled out her keys, then turned to face him. "Thank you for staying," she said. "Thank you for being honest. Are we going to tell Ryan we're planning his murder?" "Definitely. In graphic detail." She smiled, but it faded quickly. "Daniel, I know. This is complicated. I know that too. Ryan is my best friend. Your ex-husband." "Yes." Olivia looked down at her keys. "So this can't happen." "Right. Absolutely not. It would be too strange. Impossibly strange." "Good. As long as we're clear, crystal clear." They stood there in the falling snow, both nodding, neither moving. "I should go," Olivia said. "Definitely." She didn't go. Daniel didn't either. "This is a bad idea," she whispered. "The worst. We barely know each other. We've had maybe a dozen conversations, and the circumstances are insane. Completely insane." Olivia looked up at him. Snow caught in her eyelashes. "So why don't I want to leave?" Daniel didn't have an answer. Or he had too many answers, all fighting for space in his chest where his heart was doing something complicated and unwise. "We should probably think about this," he managed. "We should. Take time to process. Make rational decisions." "Exactly." Another silence. The snow fell harder. "My number's the same," Olivia said finally. "If you wanted to, I don't know. Talk about any of this." Okay. She climbed into her car, started the engine. Daniel stood on the sidewalk, watching as she cleared snow from the windows with methodical precision. When she pulled away, her taillights disappearing into the white curtain of falling snow, he remained standing there, his own car just a few feet away, trying to understand what had just happened. His phone buzzed. A text from Olivia. "I want to keep seeing you." Daniel stared at the words glowing on his screen while snow drifted silently past. His heart hammered. His mind raced through 100 reasons this was impossible. He walked to his car, got in, sat in the driver's seat while the engine warmed and snow accumulated on the windshield. Then he typed, "I'd like that too." He hit send before he could reconsider. 3 dots appeared immediately, indicating she was typing. Then they stopped, then started again. Finally, "What do we tell Ryan?" Daniel laughed, an actual laugh that filled the car with something that felt dangerously close to joy. "Nothing yet. Let him wonder if his plan worked. Cruel. I love it. Talk tomorrow?" Daniel set the phone down and pulled out onto Hanover Street, his headlights cutting through snow that seemed to fall just for him, transforming the familiar city into something new and unknown, and suddenly full of possibility. By the time Daniel reached his car, a modest Honda Civic that wore snow like a heavy blanket, his entire body felt electrified by cold and something more complicated. He'd walked Olivia to her Subaru, watched her drive away through the thickening storm, and stood alone in the middle of Hanover Street, trying to reconcile what had just happened with everything he understood about his life. The text exchange played on a loop in his mind. "I want to keep seeing you. I'd like that too." 4 hours ago, he'd been a single father dreading a blind date. Now he was a single father who'd somehow agreed to. What? Dating his best friend's ex-wife? The absurdity should have outweighed any other consideration. Should have. He was brushing snow off his windshield when he heard the crunch of footsteps behind him. "Daniel, wait." He turned. Olivia was walking back down the sidewalk, her coat already dusted white again, her breath coming in visible puffs. "Your car's that way," he said, pointing in the opposite direction. "I know." I started driving, then turned around. She stopped a few feet away, maintaining careful distance. "I need to tell you something before we do this." "Before we decide to do this, okay." She looked down at her snow-covered boots. "I lied earlier." Daniel's stomach tightened. "About what?" "About when I knew it was you." She met his eyes. "Ryan showed me your photo yesterday, yes, but I'd already figured it out 2 weeks ago. He was talking about you, about his friend who needed someone solid, who understood what divorce meant, who had a daughter named Lily. He didn't say your name, but he didn't need to. I've known you for 8 years, Daniel. I know about Lily. I know you're divorced." It wasn't hard to piece together. The snow fell between them, soft and relentless. Daniel tried to process this information. "So, when you showed up tonight, I knew exactly who I was meeting. And I came anyway." She wrapped her arms around herself. "I should have told you at the restaurant. I started to, but I got scared. Because admitting I knew makes this feel premeditated, intentional, not just some crazy accident we can laugh about." Daniel should have been angry, or at minimum, unsettled. Instead, he felt something else entirely, a strange relief that this hadn't been purely random, that she'd made a choice, however complicated. "Why?" he asked. "Why come if you knew? Honestly? Please." Olivia took a breath, her words coming out in a visible cloud. "Because I've been half in love with you for 3 years." The world seemed to stop. Even the snow paused mid-fall, suspended in the yellow streetlight. "What?" Daniel's voice barely worked, not in some dramatic, pining way, more like noticing. "The way you always asked how my design work was going when we ran into each other. The way you talked about Lily like she was the center of your universe. How you were kind to Ryan even during the divorce, never taking sides, just being steady." She laughed, a sound edged with something raw. "You were the only person who sent me a card after the divorce was finalized. Just a note card that said, 'You're going to be okay.' Remember that?" Daniel did remember. It had seemed like the right thing to do. Olivia had always been kind to him, and divorce was brutal even when it was amicable. He'd spent 15 minutes in a card store trying to find something that wasn't condescending or pitying. "I thought it would help," he said quietly. "It did, more than you know." She took a step closer. "I've tried to ignore it. You were Ryan's friend. It was inappropriate. You had your own life to rebuild. But when Ryan started talking about setting you up with someone, something in me just decided. What if I'm that someone? What if I stop waiting for the right time and just see what happens?" Did Ryan know about how you felt? God, no. He would have either run for the hills or gotten way too invested. Either option would have been terrible. She smiled faintly. "This is probably terrible too, but at least it's honest terrible." Daniel stood there in the parking lot, snow accumulating on his shoulders, trying to find words adequate to the moment. Olivia had just confessed something that should have terrified him. Instead, It felt like a key turning in a lock he hadn't known was frozen shut. 3 years? He finally said. Give or take. That's a long time to notice someone. I'm patient when I want to be. Olivia. He stopped, started again. I need you to know I never thought of you that way. While you were married to Ryan, not once. You weren't even on my radar as someone I could. I know. That's one of the things I noticed. Your complete obliviousness. She was smiling now, more relaxed. It was actually refreshing. Most men either try too hard or don't try at all. You just existed in my proximity like a genuinely decent person with no agenda. I'm not sure that's a compliment. It absolutely is. A car drove past slowly, its headlights illuminating them briefly before continuing down the street. They probably looked insane, standing in a parking lot during a snowstorm, having whatever this conversation was. This is still complicated, Daniel said. Extremely. Ryan is. We'll have to tell him eventually. He's going to lose his mind. Probably. But he set this up, so technically it's his fault. Daniel laughed despite himself. I'm not sure that logic will hold. We'll worry about Ryan later. Olivia stepped closer, close enough that he could see snowflakes caught in her dark hair, see the way her breath mingled with his in the cold air. Right now, I just need to know, was I completely wrong? About you possibly feeling something too? The question hung between them, crystalline and fragile. Daniel thought about the dinner. The ease of conversation that had surprised him. The way Olivia's laugh had made something tight in his chest loosen. The walk to her car when he'd wanted to say something but couldn't find the words because they felt too large, too fast. No, he said quietly. You weren't wrong. Olivia exhaled, a sound of pure relief. Okay. Okay, good. Because if I just made a complete fool of myself, I was going to have to move to a different state. You didn't. So now what? Now Daniel paused, trying to think practically. We take this slowly. Figure out what this is without rushing, and we definitely don't tell Ryan until we know ourselves. Agreed. And we have to be careful about Lily. She can't meet you as someone I'm dating. Not until we're sure this is, he struggled for the right word. Real, Olivia supplied. Until we're sure this is real. I understand. I wouldn't want anything else. They stood there a moment longer, neither quite ready to leave. Finally, Olivia reached out and squeezed his hand one brief contact, gloved fingers warm despite the cold. Drive safe, she said. You too. This time, she walked back to her car without turning around. Daniel watched her headlights disappear into the snow, then climbed into his own car. The drive home took twice as long as usual, the roads treacherous and slow. But Daniel barely noticed. His mind was full of Olivia's confession. 3 years. She'd noticed him for 3 years while he'd been sleepwalking through his life, focused on Lily and work and the careful management of not feeling too much. When had he last felt anything approaching what was currently flooding his chest? With Claire, maybe, in the early days before parenthood became a wedge between them. But even that felt distant and theoretical, compared to this, the sharp clarity of wanting something, someone, with an urgency that scared him. By the time he pulled into his apartment building's parking lot, his phone showed 3 missed calls from Ryan. He ignored them. Tomorrow, he'd figure out what to say. Tonight, he just wanted to sit with this feeling fragile and new and terrifying and somehow exactly right. Number. Part 7. The Father and the Winter Sleep. The apartment was warm when Daniel stepped inside, shaking snow from his coat. Mrs. Chen looked up from her book, a thick paperback mystery she'd been reading for the past month. How was dinner? She asked in her gentle accent, marking her place. Good. It was good. Daniel hung his coat, aware that his face probably betrayed more than the simple adjective suggested. Mrs. Chen studied him with the keen attention of someone who'd spent 40 years teaching middle school. You look different. Different how? Lighter. like someone lifted something heavy you'd been carrying. The observation landed with unexpected accuracy. Is that obvious? To me, yes. To 7-year-old, maybe not. She smiled, gathering her book and purse. Lily went to sleep at 8:30. She wanted to wait up, but I told her you would check on her when you got home. Thank you, Mrs. Chen. Really, you're welcome. And Daniel? She paused at the door. Whatever made you lighter, hold on to it. Too many people let go of good things because they're scared. After she left, Daniel stood in the quiet apartment, letting the evening settle around him. The living room showed signs of Lily's presence, colored pencils scattered across the coffee table, a half-finished drawing of what might have been a snow fort, her favorite stuffed elephant abandoned on the couch. He walked down the short hallway to her room, easing the door open carefully. The nightlight cast a soft glow over Lily's sleeping form. She'd kicked off her covers as usual, sprawled diagonally across the twin bed in a posture that suggested complete security. Daniel pulled the blanket back over her, tucking it around her small shoulders. She stirred slightly, her eyes opening to half-mast. "Daddy?" "Shh, go back to sleep, Ladybug. Did you have fun?" The question pulled at something in his chest. "Yes, actually, I did." "Was she nice?" "Very nice." Lily's eyes were already closing again. "Good. You should have more fun, Daddy. I'm working on it." She was asleep again before he finished the sentence, her breathing evening out into the steady rhythm of childhood. Daniel sat on the edge of her bed for a long moment, just watching. This was the center of his world, this small person who trusted him completely, who'd rebuilt her life around the half-family they'd become. Whatever happened with Olivia, Lily came first. That wasn't negotiable, but as he stood and left the room, pulling the door nearly closed behind him, he couldn't help thinking about what Mrs. Chen had said. Too many people let go of good things because they're scared. Was he scared? Absolutely. Terrified, actually, of getting hurt again, of hurting Lily, of the complexity of dating his best friend's ex-wife, which sounded like the premise of a sitcom rather than real life, but beneath the fear, something else was growing. Something that felt suspiciously like hope. His phone buzzed as he was changing into sweatpants. A text from Olivia. "Made it home safely. Still snowing." "Are you okay?" He typed back, "Yes." Lily asked if I had fun. "What did you say?" "The truth. That I did." "Good. Me too." Then, after a pause, "This is crazy, right?" Daniel smiled at his phone. "Completely insane. But you're not running?" He thought about it honestly. "Not yet. Not yet I can work with." They texted for another 20-minute surface conversation about the snow, the restaurant, Ryan's probable reaction when they eventually told him. Nothing deep, but the exchange felt significant anyway. The simple act of staying in contact, of choosing to maintain the connection rather than letting it drift into awkward silence. Finally, Olivia wrote, "I should let you sleep, but thank you for tonight, for staying, for being honest. Thank you for being brave enough to show up. Good night, Daniel." "Good night, Olivia." He set the phone on his nightstand and lay in bed, staring at the ceiling while snow continued falling outside. The bedroom was the same as it had been this morning, same furniture, same ambient sounds of the heating system, same view of the street lamp casting shadows through the window. But something fundamental had shifted. The apartment that had felt like a carefully maintained holding pattern now felt like a place he was actually living. The difference was subtle but undeniable. Daniel's last thought before sleep was of Olivia standing in the parking lot, snow melting in her hair, saying she'd been noticing him for 3 years. 3 years. He fell asleep, smiling. Morning came with diffused white light, the particular quality of illumination that meant snow had fallen all night and was still falling. Daniel woke to his alarm, silenced it, and reached for his phone before fully opening his eyes. A text from Olivia, sent at 6:47 a.m. "Good morning. Schools are closed. Storm's supposed to continue through tomorrow. Stay safe." He stared at the message, something warm spreading through his chest. She'd thought of him first thing in the morning. The realization felt significant, intimate in a way that had nothing to do with physical proximity. He typed back, "Lily will be thrilled. Nothing better than a snow day when you're 7. The response came almost immediately. "What about when you're 41? Also pretty good, actually. Plans for the day?" Daniel looked toward his bedroom window, where snow created abstract patterns on the glass. Building a snow fort. Reading the same books we've read 100 times. Probably making hot chocolate that's more marshmallows than chocolate. Sounds perfect. What about you? Working from home. Trying to finish a logo design for a client who can't decide what they want. The usual creative torture. Daniel smiled. He'd forgotten Olivia was a graphic designer, or rather, he'd known it but never really thought about what that meant. The late nights working on projects, the frustration of client revisions, the satisfaction of getting something exactly right. "I'd like to see your work sometime," he typed. 3 dots appeared, disappeared, appeared again. Finally, "I'd like that too." From down the hall, Daniel heard Lily's door open, followed by small feet padding toward his room. "Daddy, it's still snowing." "I know, Ladybug. Come here." She launched herself onto his bed, burrowing under the covers with the unconscious physicality of childhood. Her hair was a disaster, sticking up in directions that defied physics. "Can we build a fort? After breakfast. Can we have pancakes? Only if you help make them." "Deal." She scrambled off the bed and ran toward the kitchen. Daniel followed more slowly, pausing to look out the living room window. The street below was nearly impassable. Cars buried under white mounds, the sidewalks showing no trace of pavement. Boston had transformed overnight into something pristine and temporary. His phone buzzed again. "Olivia, enjoy your snow day." "Talk later?" "Definitely." Making pancakes with Lily was a messy process involving too much flour, debates about the correct ratio of chocolate chips to batter, and Lily's insistence that pancakes should be shaped like animals. "This one's a elephant," she declared, pouring batter into a vaguely blob-shaped form. "That's a very abstract elephant." "Abstract means art, right?" "Close enough." They ate at the small kitchen table, Lily swinging her legs and planning their fort with the seriousness of an architect, which, Daniel supposed, she might become. She'd inherited his love of building things, his need to create order from chaos. "It needs 3 walls and a roof," she was explaining. "And a door you can close, and maybe a window." "That's ambitious." "What does ambitious mean?" "It means you're thinking big." "I like thinking big." After breakfast, they bundled up in layers thermal underwear, jeans, sweaters, coats, scarves, mittens, boots. The preparation took longer than it should have because Lily kept getting distracted by the snow accumulating on the windowsill. "It's like the world got erased," she said, pressing her nose to the glass. "Erased? Like when you draw something and then start over. Everything's new." The observation struck Daniel as more profound than a 7-year-old should be capable of. But Lily had always been like that, simultaneously childish and oddly wise. Outside, the cold was sharp and immediate. Their breath created clouds. Snow continued falling in thick, lazy flakes that caught on eyelashes and melted on warm skin. The courtyard behind their building was unmarked, except for a few bird tracks near the fence. "We're the first ones," Lily shouted, already making the first footprints. They worked for over an hour, building walls from packed snow, shaping blocks, creating a structure that was more cave than fort, but solid enough to crawl inside. Lily directed operations with the confidence of a general, telling Daniel where to place each section, critiquing his technique, occasionally throwing snowballs that missed by several feet. Daniel's phone buzzed in his pocket. He pulled it out with clumsy, gloved fingers. "Olivia, how's the fort coming?" He took a photo of their construction, Lily standing proudly beside it, one mitten raised in triumph, and sent it. "Impressive. She's got your eye for structure. She's got my stubbornness too. Good. The world needs more stubborn builders." Daniel smiled at the screen, then looked up to find Lily watching him. Who are you texting? A friend. The friend from last night? What's her name? Daniel hesitated. Keeping Olivia a secret felt wrong, but introducing her felt premature. Olivia, that's a pretty name. It is. Is she nice? Very nice. Lily considered this, packing Snow with intense concentration. Do you like her? I do. Like her? Daniel laughed. Is that the official terminology? That's what Emma says about her dad's girlfriend. Well, it's early, but yes, I think I like her. Lily nodded, apparently satisfied. Okay. Can we go inside now? My fingers are frozen. Back in the apartment, they made hot chocolate while sitting on the heating vent, letting warmth return to their extremities. Lily turned on a movie, something animated involving talking animals and improbable adventures. Daniel half-watched, his mind elsewhere. His phone was still in his pocket. He pulled it out, stared at Olivia's last message, and made a decision. He typed, "Can I call you later? After Lily goes to bed?" "Yes, please." The rest of the day passed in the comfortable routine of snow day leisure. They read books. They played board games. Lily was still learning the rules too. They made grilled cheese sandwiches for dinner and ate them while watching snow continue to bury the city. By 8 o'clock, Lily was fighting sleep, her eyelids drooping during her bedtime story. "Daddy?" "Yes, Ladybug. I'm glad you had fun last night." "Me too. And I'm glad you have a friend named Olivia." Daniel kissed her forehead. "Thank you. Now sleep. Tomorrow we can build an even bigger fort. Bigger than a house? Maybe not that big. Bigger than a car? We'll see." She was asleep before he finished tucking her in. Daniel stood in the doorway, watching her for a long moment, then walked back to the living room. He picked up his phone and called Olivia. She answered on the second ring. Neither of them spoke for a moment, and Daniel felt suddenly awkward. What did you say to someone you'd had dinner with once, who'd confessed to noticing you for 3 years, who was technically off limits for about a dozen reasons? "This is weird, right?" Olivia said. "Calling each other like teenagers? Extremely weird. But good weird? I think so. Yes." He could hear her smile through the phone. "Tell me about your day." The parts that weren't fort construction, so he did. He told her about making pancakes shaped like abstract elephants, about Lily's observation that snow erased the world, about the quiet comfort of a day with no obligations, except being present. Olivia talked about her client project, the frustration of revision requests that contradicted previous feedback, the satisfaction of finally getting a design element right. She talked about her apartment in Cambridge, how the snow made everything quiet enough to actually think. They talked for an hour. Then 2. The conversation flowed like they'd been doing this for years. Easy, natural, punctuated by laughter and comfortable silences. Finally, around 11, Olivia yawned audibly. "I should let you sleep," Daniel said. "Probably. But I don't want to hang up." "Me either. Tomorrow?" "Tomorrow." After they disconnected, Daniel sat in the dark living room, watching snow fall through the streetlight outside. The apartment felt different again. Not empty, not lonely. Just quiet. Peaceful. His phone lit up one more time. "I want to keep seeing you." It was the same message from last night, sent again. Daniel smiled. He typed back, "I'd like that too." And this time, he knew he meant it without reservation. Daniel was making coffee when Ryan called. It was 7:30 a.m. the morning after the snow day. Lily was still asleep, and the city outside was engaged in the slow process of digging itself out. Plows had carved narrow paths through the streets overnight, pushing snow into gray mountains at intersections. Daniel saw Ryan's name on the screen and considered not answering. They'd need to have this conversation eventually, but he hadn't figured out what to say yet. How did you tell your best friend you were falling for his ex-wife? But ignoring Ryan never worked. He'd just keep calling until Daniel answered. then show up at the apartment with coffee and dogged determination. Daniel answered on the fourth ring. "You're a terrible person," he said without preamble. Ryan laughed. "Good morning to you too. I take it the date happened? You set me up with Olivia. I set you up with someone perfect for you. The fact that it's Olivia just proves I know you both better than you know yourselves." Daniel poured coffee, phone wedged between shoulder and ear. "This is insane. You realize that, right? Insane would be watching two people I care about be lonely when they're obviously compatible." Ryan's voice was maddeningly cheerful. "So? How was it? I'm not discussing this with you. That good, huh? Ryan, did you at least stay for dinner? Or did you both run screaming?" Daniel thought about lying, then realized Ryan would see through it. "We stayed. We had dinner. It was fine. Fine. You're using fine the way people use fine when they mean life-altering, but I'm too stubborn to admit it. Has anyone ever told you you're exhausting? Olivia. Frequently. For 7 years." Ryan paused. "Are you mad?" The question was asked more seriously, the playfulness draining away. Daniel considered it honestly. "I should be," he said finally. "You manipulated both of us, lied to us, created a situation that's complicated at best and relationship-destroying at worst. But you're not mad. I'm confused. About a lot of things, but not mad." He could hear Ryan's relief through the phone. "Good, because I really did think you'd be good together." "I've thought it for a while, actually." Daniel set down his coffee mug. "How long is a while?" "Since the divorce." "Maybe before. You two were always polite to each other, but it was that kind of politeness that felt like work. Like you were both trying hard not to notice something." "Ryan, I know I should have asked first. I know this puts you in a weird position. But Daniel, you've been sleepwalking for 3 years, and Olivia's been stuck in this holding pattern, waiting for something she couldn't name. I just thought, what if you could unstick each other?" The phrasing echoed what Olivia had said at the restaurant. Daniel wondered if they'd discussed it, or if the parallel thinking just proved how well Ryan understood them both. "Did Olivia know?" Daniel asked. "That you were setting her up with me? Not from me. But she's smart. She probably figured it out." That aligned with what Olivia had confessed in the parking lot. Daniel felt a flash of gratitude for Ryan's honesty, even if that honesty came after significant deception. "So what happens now?" Ryan asked. "I don't know. We're talking. Figuring things out. Talking's good. Talking's a start. A pause. Are you going to see her again? Maybe." "Daniel, probably, yes." Ryan's laugh was genuine, pleased. "Good. That's good. And for what it's worth, you have my blessing. Not that you need it, but in case that was weighing on you, you have it." The relief Daniel felt was disproportionate to the statement, but there it was. Whatever was developing with Olivia would be complicated enough without feeling like he was betraying his best friend. "Thank you," Daniel said quietly. "Just don't screw it up. Olivia's the best person I know. She deserves someone who's going to show up fully, not just go through the motions. I know, and if you hurt her, I'll have to hurt you. Best friend or not. Understood. Okay, good talk. Call me later this week. We'll grab lunch." "Ryan? Yeah? Why did you really do this?" A longer pause. "Because you've been my best friend for 15 years, and I've watched you shrink your life down to just work and Lily. You're a good father, an excellent architect, a loyal friend. But you're only 41, Daniel. You've got decades ahead of you. I wanted you to remember you're allowed to want things just for yourself." Daniel's throat felt tight. That's surprisingly thoughtful for someone who engineered an elaborate deception. "I contain multitudes." Ryan's tone lightened again. "Also, I told Olivia the same thing about you, so you might want to compare notes on my motivational speeches." After they hung up, Daniel stood in the kitchen holding his cooling coffee, processing the conversation. Ryan had given them permission, not that they needed it, exactly, but it helped. It untangled one thread in the increasingly complex knot of what was happening. His phone buzzed. "Olivia, did Ryan call you yet? Just got off the phone." "You? 20 minutes ago." He sounded very pleased with himself. "He always does?" "What did he say?" "That I should give you a chance. That you're better than you think you are. That he'd never forgive me if I let you get away." Daniel smiled. "He told me not to screw this up or he'd have to hurt me. So we have his blessing and his threats." Very Ryan. "What are you doing today?" 3 dots. Appeared. Disappeared. Appeared again. Finally. "Working from a coffee shop in Harvard Square. Trying to finish this logo project." "You?" "Office. Playing catch-up after the snow day." "Lunch break?" Daniel checked his calendar. "Noon to 1. Why?" "There's a place called Clover in the square. Vegetarian food, good coffee. Want to meet?" His heart kicked unexpectedly. Yes. Okay. See you at 12:30? I'll be there." Lily emerged from her bedroom as Daniel was getting ready for work. Her hair a magnificent disaster. "Morning, Ladybug." "Morning. Are we building more fort today?" "Not today. I have to work. But Mrs. Chen is coming over, and tomorrow's Saturday, so we can build all weekend." She nodded, apparently satisfied, and shuffled toward the kitchen. Daniel followed, helping her pour cereal, making sure she had everything she needed. "Daddy?" "Yeah? Is Olivia your girlfriend now?" The question caught him off guard. "Why do you ask?" "Because you were smiling at your phone." That's what Emma says her dad does when his girlfriend texts him. Daniel knelt so they were eye level. "I don't know yet, sweetheart. Right now, we're friends. If that changes, I'll tell you. Okay?" "Okay." She returned to her cereal, seemingly unbothered. "Can she build forts?" "I don't know. Maybe. If she can't, you should teach her. Everyone should know how to build forts. That's a very reasonable philosophy." The morning passed in a blur of meetings and emails. Daniel found it hard to concentrate, his mind drifting to the upcoming lunch, to what he'd say, how he'd navigate being in public with Olivia where anyone could see them. At 12:15, he grabbed his coat and headed out. The T from downtown to Harvard Square was crowded with lunch-hour commuters and students returning to campus after the storm. Daniel stood near the doors, watching the city blur past through salt-stained windows, and tried to identify what he was feeling. Nervousness, definitely. Anticipation. Something that might have been fear, but felt more like standing at the edge of something high and knowing you were about to jump. He emerged from the station into brilliant sunlight, reflecting off yesterday's snow. Harvard Square was its usual chaos: students in winter coats, tourists consulting phones, street musicians performing despite the cold. The plows had cleared the main paths, pushing snow into dirty mountains at the edges. Clover was tucked into a corner near the square, a small restaurant with floor-to-ceiling windows and a line that snaked out the door. Daniel joined it, scanning the interior for Olivia. He found her at a table by the window, laptop open, absorbed in whatever was on her screen. She wore a gray sweater and had her dark hair pulled back in a way that made her look younger than 38. Sunlight caught the side of her face, and Daniel felt his breath catch at the simple fact of her existence. He got in line, ordered tea and a chickpea fritter sandwich, then made his way to her table. "Is this seat taken?" Olivia looked up, and her face transformed with a smile. "Only if you promise not to judge my design work." "I promise nothing." He settled into the chair across from her, setting down his tray. "How's it going?" "The client finally approved something, so I'm actually finishing rather than revising." She closed her laptop. "How was your morning?" "Long. Full of people asking about construction timelines I can't control." He took a sip of tea. "But better now." The honesty of the statement surprised him, not because it wasn't true, but because he'd said it without hedging or deflection. Olivia seemed to notice too, her smile softening into something more intimate. I'm glad. They ate and talked about work, about the storm, about small things that felt significant in their ordinariness. Daniel found himself watching the way Olivia gestured when she explained a design concept, the way she laughed at his description of a particularly difficult client, the way her entire face became animated when she was engaged in conversation. Can I ask you something? She said, setting down her sandwich. Always. Are you scared? The directness was classic Olivia, no dancing around difficult topics, just straight to the center of things. Daniel appreciated it even as it made him uncomfortable. Terrified, he admitted. Of what specifically? All of it. Getting hurt again. Hurting you. The complexity with Ryan. What it means for Lily if this doesn't work out. He paused. What it means for me if it does. Olivia nodded slowly. I'm scared too, but I've been thinking about something my therapist said after the divorce. You have a therapist? Don't sound so surprised. I'm a divorced woman in her late 30s living in Cambridge. Having a therapist is basically required. He smiled. Fair point. What did they say? That fear is just information. It tells you something matters, that you're invested in the outcome. It's not a reason to run, it's just data to acknowledge while you figure out what you actually want. And what do you want? She met his eyes directly. I want to see where this goes. With all the fear and complication and risk, I want to try. Daniel felt something shift in his chest, like ice cracking under spring sun. Me too. Yeah? Yeah. They finished lunch in comfortable silence, just being in each other's presence. When Olivia checked her watch and grimaced, Daniel knew their time was ending. I should get back, she said. Client call in 20 minutes. I should too. Reports to review. They walked out together into the bright, cold afternoon. The square was less crowded now, the lunch rush subsiding. Snow on the ground had turned from white to gray, already showing the city beneath. Thank you for meeting me, Olivia said. Thank you for asking. She hesitated, then stepped closer and hugged him, a brief, warm contact that felt both natural and electric. Daniel inhaled the cedar scent of her perfume, felt the solid reality of her in his arms, and had to resist the urge to hold on longer than appropriate. When she pulled back, her cheeks were flushed from cold or emotion, or both. Text me later? She said. Definitely. He watched her walk toward the T-station, her figure disappearing into the crowd of afternoon commuters. Then he turned and walked in the opposite direction. Back to his office, back to work, back to the ordinary world that somehow felt less ordinary than it had 3 days ago. That evening, after dinner and homework help and reading Lily 2 chapters of their current book, Daniel stood at his living room window watching snow melt in the streetlight. The city was transitioning from winter storm to winter thaw, the snow still present but no longer accumulating, the world slowly revealing itself again. His phone buzzed. Olivia. Made it home. Good afternoon? Better than good. You? Client approved the final design. Small victories. Those are the best kind. A pause then. I really enjoyed lunch. Me too. When can I see you again? Daniel smiled at his phone. At the directness of the question. At the way Olivia asked for what she wanted without games or pretense. This weekend? Saturday afternoon? Lily has a birthday party from 2 to 4. Saturday works. Where? There's a bookstore in Brookline. Trident Booksellers. Good coffee, better books. I know it. 4:30? Perfect. Daniel set his phone down and looked back out the window. The winter that had felt endless just days ago now seemed temporary. Spring would come eventually, it always did. But even now, in the middle of February, with snow still on the ground, something had shifted. Mrs. Chen had been right. He felt lighter. Not because the weight was gone, Lily still needed him. Work still demanded attention. The complications with Olivia and Ryan hadn't disappeared, but the burden felt shared now, distributed across a wider foundation. He thought about Lily's question. Is she your girlfriend now? Not yet. Maybe never. But possibility had returned to his life, and that alone felt revolutionary. Outside, snow continued its slow transformation from obstacle to memory. Inside, Daniel made tea and settled onto the couch with architectural plans for tomorrow's meeting. But his mind kept drifting to Saturday, to the bookstore, to whatever came next. For the first time in 3 years, next felt like something to move toward rather than something to endure. And when he finally went to bed, closing his eyes against the reflected light of snow and street lamps, his last thought was simple. Winter wasn't over yet, but he could see spring from here. 2 months later, on a Saturday morning in mid-April, Daniel stood in his kitchen making pancakes while Lily directed operations. More chocolate chips in this one? That's already 50% chocolate chips, so make it 75%. That's not how pancakes work. It could be. Through the window, Boston was in full spring transformation, trees budding green, tulips pushing through dirt, the last stubborn patches of snow finally surrendering to warmth. The city looked scrubbed clean, new, full of potential. Olivia was coming over for brunch. It would be the first time she'd been to the apartment, the first time Lily would meet her as more than a name Daniel mentioned occasionally. They'd spent the past 2 months moving carefully dinners when Lily was at friends' houses, lunch meetings in neutral locations, long phone conversations after bedtime. Daniel had been cautious about integration, not wanting to rush something that felt important. But Lily had started asking questions. When would she meet Olivia? What did she look like? Could she come over sometime? Last week, he'd finally asked if she wanted that. Do you mean like a play date? Lily had asked. Sort of. More like meeting a friend of mine. The friend you really like? Lily had considered this seriously. Okay, but can we make pancakes? I want to show her how we make them. So here they were, making pancakes at 10 o'clock on a Saturday morning, waiting for the doorbell. When it rang, Lily ran to answer it before Daniel could stop her. He followed quickly, ready to intervene if needed, but froze in the hallway at what he saw. Olivia, kneeling at Lily's eye level, shaking her hand with exaggerated formality. You must be Lily. I'm Olivia. I've heard so much about you. Really? What did you hear? That you're an excellent fort builder, and that you make pancakes shaped like elephants. Lily's face lit up. Do you want to help make them? We're making them right now. I would love that. She looked up at Daniel, still kneeling, and smiled. He smiled back, something warm and certain settling in his chest. This was right, complex and unconventional, and full of risk, but right. In the kitchen, Lily explained pancake philosophy while Olivia listened with genuine interest. Daniel watched them together, Lily demonstrating proper chocolate chip distribution, Olivia asking thoughtful questions, and felt the final piece of his carefully managed life click into place. Later, after pancakes and stories and Lily falling asleep on the couch during a movie, Daniel and Olivia sat at the kitchen table with coffee. She's wonderful, Olivia said quietly, glancing toward the sleeping child. She liked you. Good. Because I really like her too. And me? Daniel asked, half joking. You're okay. I mostly just wanted access to the fort building. He laughed, reaching across the table to take her hand. She laced her fingers through his, and they sat there in comfortable silence while April sunlight filled the kitchen. Outside, the last snow had finally melted. Spring had arrived, and Daniel Carter, single father and architect of careful routines, discovered something he'd forgotten. Sometimes the best blueprints are the ones you don't plan. Sometimes you just have to show up, stay brave, and let something new begin.